Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. We got a packed show lined up for you guys today. Starting right off the top, we're going to preview the play-in matchups today. Two teams in both conferences still looking for their playoff opponents in the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. 2 games tonight to decide who they will face. So we're going to preview both of those games. Also, the New Orleans Pelicans firing their head of president of basketball operations, Willie Reed, and hiring Joe Dumars. We're going to get into that about the New Orleans Pelicans. And we're also going to give some playoff predictions as well to close out the show. My playoff predictions for what to expect through the rest of the playoffs from start to finish, or for the first round in general, not the start to finish, but for the first round, we're going to discuss all of that as well. Pack show lined up for you guys today. It's been a long week, but we got a long weekend ahead of us, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you guys for being here. But before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But getting right into it here, we're going to start off the show previewing 2 playing games tonight. Starting in the East, of course. We got to save the better one for last in the West, because we've been over that, the Wild Wild West. But in the East, to start, we got the Miami Heat taking on the Atlanta Hawks. I personally think this game is going to be, I don't know how this game is going to go. I know the Heat are going to win this game. I'm picking the Miami Heat to win this game. But in what fashion? Are we going to see a similar fashion to what we saw a week ago from the Bulls and the Miami Heat in the regular season, with the Bulls winning that matchup and it remaining a close matchup? Or are we going to see the Miami Heat team in the playoffs, like they did to the Chicago Bulls 2 days ago, came into Chicago and just rumped them, just didn't hit the gas pedal and never look back, just bum rushed them, is the only way I can really describe it. Is that the Miami Heat team that we're going to see? Eric Spoelstra will scheme these guys up. Tyler Hero played phenomenal in their last game with 38 points. Bam Adebayo with 15 points and 12 rebounds. I really think it's going to come down to the offensive play of Tyler Hero to decide how this Miami Heat's offense will look and it will define their success, really. Because at the end of the day in the playoffs, I've mentioned it before, you need a number one option on the scoring side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, to get you a bucket when you need it. And Tyler Hero proved to be that guy against Chicago Bulls. Can he continue to do that? That is to remain to be seen. On the other side with the Atlanta Hawks, we saw them get absolutely rumped by the Orlando Magic, cutting the lead to 2 points to start the fourth quarter, and then the fourth quarter just being a complete and utter disaster, being the only way to describe it. Finishing the game as a 25-point loss, when it was a 2-point game going into the fourth quarter. That's really all you need to know about how this game ended, because unfortunately, it's just unfortunate, but that's the way it ended up finishing. Orlando in that game led by Cole Anthony. Also Trae Young being ejected in that game. It's going to be interesting to see how he responds from that to not ticky-tacky, but frustration, technical fouls being called on him back-to-back in the span of about 5 seconds, and he was tossed out of the game with about 5 minutes to play in that one. But yeah, I really don't know how. I personally think Bam Adebayo is going to have a massive game in this one. We saw him being limited a little bit going up against Nikola Vucevic, which was an outstanding matchup. Both Vucevic and Adebayo going out for double-doubles, both having 12 rebounds in this game. But yeah, Adebayo, who's going to stop Adebayo in this one? I think Clint Capella's time in the NBA has been He's not the same guy that he was, say, 2 or 3 years ago when the Atlanta Hawks went to the conference finals. But I don't think Clint Capella can handle Bam Adebayo tomorrow or tonight. I just don't see it. I think Bam Adebayo is going to have a field day in there, and it's just going to be. I obviously I want all these games to be competitive, especially because it's the playoffs. I want the games to be close as a fan of the NBA, but with the with my thinking cap and knowing how this season has gone on, I would not be shocked if this game is a blowout again. Similar to what we saw with Orlando, similar to what we saw Miami do to Chicago. I think it's just going to be another 15 to 17 point win for this Miami Heat squad, and they will advance to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. But, yeah, switching gears to the other side with the Western Conference, I think this game, without a doubt in my mind, this game will be close. I promise this will be one of the games of the. This is one of the early slated games that we've had our eyes on since we heard. Well, regardless of how that Warriors Grizzlies game panned out, we knew this game was going to be very close. The Dallas Mavericks putting on a show in Sacramento. Continuing to show why they are so dominant. They're so dominant in the interior with their big men, with Daniel Gafford, Anthony Davis, PJ Washington, Derek Lively. They proved why their height is. They can simply go up against anybody and be competitive against anybody because of how dominant they are in the paint. Nobody can really match them because nobody is built the way they are. You don't really see teams these days with about 4 different centers. If you want to count PJ Washington, PJ Washington's more of a power forward and a small forward. But between the 4 and the 5 positions, the Mavericks are easily the deepest team because with what I just mentioned. The Dallas Mavericks taking on the Memphis Grizzlies in this one. I really like the Mavericks in this one. I know the Memphis Grizzlies need this win. I know Ja Morant needs this win, especially if we want to see Ja Morant remain in Memphis. I think next season he has to win this game. If he loses this game, I think the ownership and the GM will move on from Ja Morant and look to trade him in the offseason. That is my personal opinion. If he loses tonight. If he does not make the playoff, it just continues to cement to ownership and the nearby around the NBA. There have been rumors of executive mentioning that they don't think Ja Morant is a star that you can build your team around, that he can win playoff series, that he can come up in big moments, especially in the playoffs. If Ja Morant loses this game, it will further cement that narrative. And I don't think, especially with the firing of Taylor Jenkins, and especially with the playoff disappointments that this team has put on over the last 3 years or so now. Yeah. Since 2022 when they lost to Golden State. 2023 when they lost to LA. Both of those series, they held home court. This season, they were in the 2 seed, falling all the way down to the 8. Losing the 7-8 matchup against Golden State, not being able to inbound the play with 5 seconds to go. Couldn't even get a shot off to have an opportunity to tie the game and bring it to overtime. This is the Memphis Grizzlies team that we're talking about here. And I think Desmond Bane is a shot maker. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is unbelievable in the paint in the interior as a defensive. He's one of the most underrated defensive guys in the league. But when it comes to Ja Morant, when it comes to the leader of this team, this team has proven that they have a young, strong core of guys, a young group. But they have not had a leader. And especially if he loses this game, I think it's going to put the final nail in the coffin for Ja Morant if he loses this game. He has to come out and prove, if he loses this game, he has to prove that he is not the reason why they lost this game. He has to go off if he goes off for 40 points, 8 to 10 rebounds, and 7 assists, I'll throw my hands up and say, okay. Because you can't put the blame on him at that point. He did the best that he can. But if you can definitively look at Ja Morant and say, you missed this play, you missed this play, you missed this play, similar to what happened in Golden State at the end of that game with 5 seconds to go when they couldn't inbound the ball. Flat out couldn't. With the other side, with Steph Curry getting the ball on every possession down the stretch, 3 possessions, especially inbound plays, cutting off 10 seconds off the clock. The ball was just being fed to Steph Curry because you knew you could trust him with the ball. You knew he would get open, and he got himself open. This is not what we're seeing from Memphis right now. And it's very troubling. I won't lie. It's sad to see because Ja Morant is personally one of my favorite players. He's been in the league for a while. He's still incredibly young. He's entering his prime right now. Do not get me wrong. But at some point or another, you have to show flashes of success, flashes of potential to prove your worth, prove that you can be one of the guys, that you prove that you can be a star and leader of this team. You already have off the court issues. You already have questions about being able to lead the team, questions with questionable playoff performances. Your team continues to disappoint come playoff time. At some point or another, you can't just continue to roll the dice. And the only way I can describe it is similar to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Produce the same show every single year, make it to the playoffs, and either miss the play or miss it by the skin of your teeth, or you make it and you get blown out in the first round. You just can't have that. And that's what it's been. That's a narrative going on in Memphis right now. That's what's gone on over the last 4 years or so. And I think ownership is tired of it. So I know there were rumors floating around that Taylor Jenkins was looking to fire or to move Ja Morant from Memphis, and there were rumors that possibly that was why Taylor Jenkins was fired in the midseason firing. Mind you, the Memphis Grizzlies were the 2 or 3 seed when Taylor Jenkins was fired. Just to put it a little bit into perspective right now. But that's neither here nor there. I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Damian Lillard returning to Milwaukee. He's finally back in Milwaukee. His first opportunity there in the playoff. This is the Milwaukee Bucks' first opportunity with Damian Lillard on the Bucks for Giannis and Dame to play on the court together in the playoffs. It's going to be very interesting to see. We're going to cover everything about Damian Lillard, give a little bit of an injury update, how he looks, and what to expect from him come playoff time.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our next segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about Damian Lillard. News finally coming out yesterday that Damian Lillard will be back in the lineup for the Milwaukee Bucks sometime in the Pacers series. He is still out for Game 1 on Saturday, but he's resumed contact workouts, ramping up his return, getting ready to be back for this team. And it's going to be really interesting to see Damian Lillard missing about the last 3 or 4 weeks now. But we all know who Damian Lillard is. We've seen him time and time again throughout his playoff career show up in a similar fashion as Jimmy Butler does, calling him playoff Jimmy. There is a world you can call him playoff Dame with the amount of highlight plays he's had over the years, buzzer beaters, improbable playoff series wins that you didn't expect them to pull out in his days when he was in Portland. In general, we're going to get into Damian Lillard and everything to expect from him. But before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net for your questions. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it. It also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. And I've said it before on this show, your guys' input helps us build our shows, the good, the positive, the negative, everything in general. Lets us know what you guys want to hear, helps us build our shows, and you guys are a massive part of what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network. So please, let us know everything. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below or in the chat. But getting right back into it here. Yeah, Damian Lillard finally cleared. We saw last week that he was having a test he was suffering from something called deep vein thrombosis. Another word to call it is blood clots in his veins. And when it's left untreated, just to go over it really quick, when it's left untreated, it can cause heart attacks. So obviously, it's not great to pass up on it's not good to pass up on your health when it can cause death. Simple as that. We don't need to go any further than that. But this is unprecedented. We've heard from doctors over the last few days now, since his test earlier this week, that there is really no timetable. There never really has been a timetable on this injury because there haven't been a lot of players that come back from this injury. But yeah, this has been a stunner for Damian Lillard. This is an absolute stunner, and this is a God-sent gift for the Milwaukee Bucks. There is a lot of speculation, honestly, that Damian Lillard, especially come playoff time, even if he's not 100%, if it looks clear enough that he can roll the dice and at least give his team an opportunity to make it to go on a deep playoff run, the Damian Lillard will always take that shot, will always take that opportunity, and the Milwaukee Bucks are so happy to have him back. This will be the first year that Giannis and Damian Lillard will be on the floor together in the NBA playoffs. Last season, there was no Giannis. This season, we didn't know if Damian Lillard was going to be there, but now we know. He will not be there for game 1. He has been ruled out, or he was ruled out earlier this week when he had his first procedure and test on his blood to see how the thinning medications he was taking had been going. But yeah, since that is finished, he has resumed contact workouts and looks to be ready to go and back for their first round series against the Indiana Pacers. A series that I've lamented on this show over the last week will most likely go 7 games. One of the more competitive series in the Eastern Conference. 2 teams. The Indiana Pacers still a little bit young, but gained a lot of experience in last year's playoffs. Also taking out Milwaukee in last year's playoffs. Giannis trying to return to that peak form, getting ready to go on another deep playoff run. We haven't seen Giannis over the last 2 years. The last time we saw Giannis make it out of the first round was 2023 when they went up against or was it 2023? No, I lied. Both 2023 and 2024, the Milwaukee Bucks being sent home in the first round, 2023 being Miami, when Jimmy Butler went absolutely ballistic against them. But 2022, the last time we saw Milwaukee make it to the second round when they lost in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. And then, of course, we remember 2021, them going all the way to the NBA Finals and winning the NBA Finals. So, it's been kind of a steep decline for this Milwaukee Bucks team in terms of just overall playoff woes, like what to expect from them come playoff time. I mentioned going from finals 4 years ago, winning the finals 4 years ago, to back-to-back first-round losses. But it's good to have Damian Lillard back, and it will absolutely make this series even more interesting. But yeah, 3 weeks has been the timetable from the announcement of the injury to now being cleared to play. And the Milwaukee Bucks are so happy to have him back, like I mentioned. But yeah, this Milwaukee team will really need Damian Lillard to play that pick and roll style offense with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis, we know, is the power, the freight train that we call Giannis through the paint, an athletic freak, the Greek freak, his nickname. And being able to pick and pop from the outside, being able to bring it to the inside with Giannis, this Milwaukee team is going to be formidable, and the Pacers are going to have their hands full with him. I think what the Pacers should do in this series, I don't know if they will do this, but what they should do is turn this series into a shootout. If they can turn games into a shootout, I know Milwaukee still has Damian Lillard. I completely understand that. But outside of Damian Lillard, like, if Damian Lillard is not hot per se from the outside, especially, I've lamented this before as well, when you come back from injuries, the last thing to come back to you as a shooter is your rhythm from the three-point line, is your rhythm as a shooter. Usually your shooting percentages take a little bit of a dip, falling from, say, I believe Damian Lillard was hanging around 40% from three-point range. He's probably going to dip to around 36, 35%. Which can be a little bit of a swing, is a 6 to 9 point swing per game. So it's just going to be interesting to see how things pan out here. But yeah, this Indiana Pacers team should turn it into a shootout, especially with the guys that they have on their team, with Andrew Nembhard, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, Benedict Mathurin. All these guys, a very incredibly deep team. 7 guys deep that can go 10 plus points a game. Aaron Nesmith, I didn't even mention, a big piece of this offense over the last 2 years. Yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks, both teams, honestly, I think, have their hands full on how to scheme for them, how to scheme against each other. Milwaukee will try to implicate their dominance in the paint. If they can do that, similar to what the Dallas Mavericks style is, just give the ball to Giannis and just ask him to go down the lane and get a bucket. And then use the pick and pop method between him and Dame. I think it'll really help out this team. I think this team can make a deep playoff run if they like. I just think this series, regardless of who wins this series, I don't really want to say that hot take yet. I do have a hot take for this year's NBA playoffs in the second round, but I don't want to say it yet. Just because if I'm wrong, I don't really want this clip to be against me. So I'm going to hold that opinion to myself for now and come back to it in a few games. Let's just see how the series pans out a little bit before I get ahead of myself. But yeah, that's the state of the Eastern Conference right now. Damian Lillard officially cleared to return, and a much anticipated return for him. So we are so excited to have him back in the NBA world, and it makes this series against the Indiana Pacers that much more must watch. I believe this series starts on Saturday. It's the first game to kick off the NBA playoffs. So buckle up because this weekend is going to be crazy, especially if this game is the first game of the Saturday slate. But I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the New Orleans Pelicans, them firing their president of basketball operations. I believe his name's Willie Reed. But hiring Joe Dumars as their new head of basketball operations. We're going to take a look at the New Orleans Pelicans, recap their season a little bit. I know they had a little bit of a disappointing season. Talk a little bit about Zion Williamson, what they should do in the offseason with him and around the team in general. And in general, moving forward, what to expect from the New Orleans Pelicans in 2026. I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's going to be New Orleans Pelicans basketball.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting right back into it here, we're going to take a look at the New Orleans Pelicans on this segment of the show. The Pelicans firing David Griffin. I apologize. I did not mean Willie Reed at the tail end of the last segment. I don't know why. I just blanked on the name, and Willie Reed is the first thing that came to my head. I seriously apologize for that. But the New Orleans Pelicans firing David Griffin as their president of basketball operations, NBA executives. It's different titles for the same position, but Griffin out after 6 years with the team. The first thing I think, I don't want to say this is a Zion Williamson issue, but I do think this issue was influenced on this team's performance this year. The New Orleans Pelicans being, at least for me, one of the sleepers in the Western Conference this season. With a healthy Zion Williamson, they really have been for the last few years. With a healthy Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram being a leader of this team, CJ McCollum, they had a deep team. Jose Alvarado, I'm trying to remember Jose Valanciunas. They had a deep squad. They had a very deep team, and I thought they were sleepers. They were dark horses. Especially, we remember 2 years ago when they took on the Phoenix Suns in the first round, when the Phoenix Suns went to the NBA Finals, and the New Orleans Pelicans gave the Suns some difficulties on both ends of the ball. They were just one of the dark horses. They just felt like a young team that needed more time to grow around one another, to continue to grow chemistry, to continue to grow confidence in one another. Bring in another star player or another veteran for this team, and we thought they could be contenders to win the Western Conference. And then this year, of course, this team has not been what we expected. Over 6 seasons, David Griffin going to winning only 209, having a losing record. Period, losing 53 more games than wins. While they did suffer some key injuries, it just didn't feel it. This team just didn't feel like exactly what we expected from them. Before the playoffs, before the season started, we just expected more from this team in general, and it's unfortunate what's going on with David Griffin. David Griffin being one of the more well-respected men around the NBA, and it's just unfortunate to see him go. But same thing that I mentioned with the Memphis Grizzlies. when you have a team that the Pelicans are on another level than the Grizzlies. Do not get me wrong. The Grizzlies are not on that level, but the Pelicans have been disappointing over the last few years, especially this year. I think this year was just the nail in the coffin, especially trading Brandon Ingram to Toronto, and their season since then has just really been a wash. It just has. It's the only way to describe it. But there is a new man in the position now for this team, a former player in the NBA, an NBA champion, a former league office vice president of league off. I think he was an executive for the entire NBA. I can't remember his exact position. He might have been the vice president or vice. He was part of the commissioner team with Adam Silver in the NBA. Whether he was the vice president of the NBA or regardless, but Joe Dumars, a well-beloved player from his time in Detroit with the Detroit Pistons, part of the Bad Boy Pistons team, and finally a player in general, a player coach that is beloved around the league, finally gets his opportunity as a executive now for the New Orleans Pelicans, and it is so good to see him back there. Of course, we remember his days with the Detroit Pistons from 2000 to 2014, building that 2004 Detroit Pistons team. And now he's going back to his hometown in New Orleans, Louisiana, his hometown where he was born, and it's good to have. He's just playing around in front of his home crowd, and it's just good to have him back. Joe Dumars is beloved around the league. We remember him, as I mentioned, with the days of the Bad Boy Pistons. That's where we remember him most. But Joe Dumars is incredibly knowledgeable with the game, hanging around the league office for the last few years, I believe for the last 5 years or so. Now getting another opportunity as an executive since his time with the Detroit Pistons, now with the New Orleans Pelicans. I think his first order of business will be deciding what you do with Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson, of course, we remember him being the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. If I remember correctly, it was 2018. I think so. One of the more formidable talents, or one of the more unbelievable talents, a talent that we were comparing to a LeBron James, to a Michael Jordan, a unanimous number 1 overall pick in the league in the draft that year. Remember his time with Duke, with how dominant he was, getting comparisons to Shaq while he was in college, getting compared to Shaq in terms of potential. When you get comparisons like that, it's just difficult to shut it down. It's difficult not to listen to them as a coach, as an executive in the league. And it's difficult when you see a player like that suffer the injuries that Zion Williamson has suffered. Multiple season-ending injuries, being ridiculed by the media for his weight, being ridiculed that he's not taking care of his body, not taking his occupation as an NBA basketball player, as an athlete seriously. I'm not going to go further than that, but I personally think you can still get assets for Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson still has value in this league. If you decide to blow this team up, it would not be a bad idea to trade Zion Williamson for some extra assets in the NBA drafts, whether it be this year, whether it be in future years. I think the best course of action, if you're Joe Dumars, if you're the GM of this team, it's to trade away Zion Williamson, get as many assets as you can back from him. Specifically, if you can focus on picks instead of players, to just keep the core that you have right now, whatever is left of it, keep that core there. Keep CJ McCollum as a veteran there, if he'd like to stay, of course. And then just build the team around him. You already have a top pick in this year's NBA draft. You're part of the lottery in the running for the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, and you're a top 10 pick. Where you're going to end up, I personally don't know, but you're in the running for one of the top top 7 picks in this year's NBA draft. So you do have that going for you. If you can get a future first round pick, a future first and a second round pick for Zion Williamson, I think that should suffice. I would take that deal in a heartbeat, really, if I'm Joe Dumars in this team. And from there, I think you just grow you can grow in the offseason if you can. If you can get, say, a Domantas Sabonis, even though he's mentioned he wants to go to a playoff team. Say if you can get a DeMar DeRozan, or just get anybody on the market, really. If you can get anybody, either a young guy, a veteran, get somebody that you can grow around as a player. It doesn't have to be the young star of this team. It doesn't have to be the number one. It doesn't have to be the number one option in general for the future. Just get somebody that you can rely upon, that you can get some wins, grow this franchise a little bit, grow this fan base a little bit, because it's at rock bottom right now. Just bring it somewhere from rock bottom where it's sitting. Because this team really just feels like it's at rock bottom. Just do something to bring it off there and just try and grow this franchise a little bit. Joe Dumars did that with Detroit. Will he do it again? That's yet to be seen, but we've seen him. We saw what he did when he was an NBA player. We know he has experience as an NBA player. We saw what he's done as a champion, as an NBA executive, as a part of league office. He continues to learn and watch Adam Silver at work, watch these teams at work, managing everybody as a part of the head of the league. And now part of the New Orleans Pelicans, it's going to be his time to see what he's grown, show his growth, show his maturity, see what he knows now and what he can bring to the table as the future NBA executive of the New Orleans Pelicans. That's all I got for the Pelicans. There's really not a lot to talk about with this team, with not a lot going on for this team. A lot of speculation, a lot of question marks on where this team should go next. But I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at Dwight Howard being announced as part of the 2025 Hall of Fame class. I know this news is a little bit late. There really hasn't. It's been a loaded week of NBA playoff basketball, so I haven't really been able to cover it. I'm going to cover it in the next segment when we come back from a short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting back into the next segment here, we're going to take a look at Dwight Howard and he's being inducted as a part of the Hall of Fame class of 2025. First off, congratulations to Dwight Howard. Absolutely deserves it. We remember him as a part of the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers when they won the NBA championship in 2020. We remember him making the finals as part of the team in 2009, I believe, when they went to the NBA finals. And when they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers, Dwight Howard was a part of that team. And the biggest thing we remember about Dwight Howard is, of course, Superman's in the building, as Shaq and Kenny the Jet Smith would say back in the day when he was in the dunk contest. We all remember that dunk contest, the meme. If you don't know it, just look up Dwight Howard, Superman dunk. It's one of the funniest clips of all time in terms of not only NBA on TNT, but in all of the dunk contest history. It's one of the funniest moments, but we remember him, the nickname Superman, coming from his athletic ability, his ability to dunk, a 5-time all-defensive team member, a 3-time defensive player of the year, 8-time all-NBA, just a loaded resume for Dwight Howard, and much deserved for him to be a part of this year's NBA Hall of Fame class. The one thing I will say, it's unfortunate because in my age of growing up in the NBA, Dwight Howard was kind of beginning his decline with the Orlando Magic. I remember him. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely remember him. I just wish I saw him in 2009 when he was being named Defensive Player of the Year, when he was showing off as this guy. I remember him in the dunk contest, but I just don't particularly remember him as a part of, just in general, part of the NBA Finals team that he made. And, yeah, I remember him as part of the Lakers. I remember him as part of the Magic. He did have some time overseas before returning back as part of the Lakers, but it doesn't matter. In general, it's good to have him as part of the Hall of Fame class of 2025. Much deserved. One of the top tier talents the NBA has ever seen. Back in the day, really the only thing we've seen closest to Shaq is Dwight Howard in terms of athleticism, in terms of size, strength, bully ball, style in the paint, defense in general. He was just the biggest. He's the only guy you can really compare to the to compare to the Diesel, Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal. He was also part of the 2008 and 2008 Olympic Games when they won in Beijing. One of the better talents across the NBA in general. Dwight Howard deserves all his flowers. So happy to see him as part of the NBA Hall of Fame class this year. Trying to remember the other guy. I was talking about it. Oh well, but it's just good to see him as part of the Hall of Fame class in general, and much deserved to him. Well deserved, absolutely well deserved for him to be honored with this, and honored as part of the 2025 Hall of Fame class. But yeah, officially retired. I believe ever since he left the Lakers in 2020, he retired after winning that finals, and 4 years removed, he's moving into the Hall of Fame into Springfield, Massachusetts as part of the 2025 NBA Hall of Fame class. I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at NBA playoff predictions, my NBA playoff predictions. In general, we're going to take a look at both the Eastern and Western Conference first round matchups because there's a lot to look at there. I'm going to take a short break and we're going to give NBA playoff predictions. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting back into it here, I'm going to give my final NBA first round predictions, pre-playoffs. Of course, they begin tomorrow afternoon, so I'm going to give a little bit of predictions across the board. We're going to start in the East and then go into the West. Start in the East, I'm going to take a look at the Knicks and Pistons first. One of the more anticipated matchups in the Eastern Conference. Honestly, I'm tired of saying, one of the more anticipated. Eastern Conference matchups. I was going to say, I'm tired of saying that because every matchup in this year's NBA playoffs is anticipated. But, yeah, Knicks, Pistons, of course. We remember the grit and grind of the New York Knicks from the last few years. This season being more of a talented team with Karl-Anthony Towns, Josh Hart in general. I personally think the Detroit Pistons youth could be their Achilles heel in this series. How they're going to be able to handle the pressure in Madison Square Garden. And then it's going to be about Jalen Brunson taking over for the New York Knicks. Flipping the script a little bit, though, I think at the same time, led by Cade Cunningham, I think this Detroit Pistons team is being underrated significantly across the league. They're 3-1 against the Knicks in the regular season. That's with Jalen Brunson in the lineup as well in all of those games. The Detroit Pistons with Jalen Duren, Tim Hardaway Jr., Asher Thompson, and Cade Cunningham in general, led by JB Bickerstaff. I think this team is one of the best teams, one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, one of my personal dark horses to possibly win the Eastern Conference, even though I wouldn't pick them over, say, Cleveland or Boston. I do think this team is one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. And I know that is a little bit of a shock, but I'm picking the Pistons to win this series in 6 games. Go on to the next round to face most likely Boston in the first round. We'll get into that series next, but that's my prediction as we move forward in this NBA playoffs. Anthony, I'm so sorry I missed your question. I just wanted to talk about the Knicks first. I have a question. Do you guys plan to do a podcast for every team in the NBA and NFL? No, we just do. I have my basketball podcast. This is the basketball podcast. We just talk about everything NBA and college basketball related. I don't know as much college basketball, but I'm getting to know more. I'm learning more. So I should have more basketball content in that world coming soon, especially when the NBA playoffs close. Also, I believe the reason why they're so underrated because they're still a young team and people think they probably got to the playoffs a little bit too soon. You can say that, but at the same time, this is the same Detroit Pistons team that went from 14 wins last season. There are clips out there of NBA analysts going on air and saying this is the worst NBA team in NBA history. To go from that to what they are now, from 14 wins to 44 wins, I completely understand that you can look at them and say they're a little bit too ahead of their time, but I think this is more. I personally, as a fan, I've personally been looking at the Detroit Pistons for the last few years, ever since they drafted Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Asher Thompson, all of these guys. Isaiah Stewart, remember his days against his feud with LeBron James back in the day. I think they're just incredibly underrated, and they're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So they deserve I think they're one of the best teams in general in the Eastern Conference. I may not have a whole lot of time to go across the Western Conference as well, so I may have to only preview the East, but that is what it is, just because I'm cutting it close on time here. To move on in the East, I should have started with the 1-8 matchup. If the Miami Heat win tonight, this is speculation that the Miami Heat end up winning this game tonight, but I think it's going to be Cleveland Cavaliers versus Miami Heat in the first round. Should be an easy sweep for Cleveland, I think. Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. I think Bam Adebayo probably will dominate on the paint. I don't know if he'll be able to deal with Mobley and Jared Allen for Cleveland, but I think Bam Adebayo will have games where he goes off for at least a double-double for points and rebounds in general. So he will have games like that. But I think this series is going to come down to scoring with Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. I just don't think the Miami Heat will be able to keep up with the scorers on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that'll be their Achilles heel. That'll probably be that for the Miami Heat, not one of the more anticipated teams in this year's playoffs. We saw them against the Chicago Bulls a couple nights ago, put on an absolute show. But I think the task of dealing with the Cleveland Cavaliers this season, especially without Jimmy Butler, is just going to be too much for them to handle in general. So I just think, I just think Cleveland will most likely win this game in 4, if not 5 games, but I would pick them to win in 4 in this one. I don't think so. I'm a Heat fan. I don't have faith that they're going to continue this winning streak. I think they lose tonight. You think they lose tonight against Atlanta? I can see what you mean. I talked about this at the beginning of the show. I just don't think Atlanta has the team to that they might have the team. They may have Trae Young on this team, but they don't have the maturity. We saw Trae Young lash out at referees and get ejected down 20 points against the Orlando Magic. If that is what we're seeing from Trae Young as a star player for this team, a player that we've seen perform down time and time again in the playoffs, one of the more underrated playoff performers in the Eastern Conference, in the league in general, I just don't know what. I personally think the best way to describe the Atlanta Hawks right now is really just broken, I think. I just don't think they have the team that can compete. They may be able to compete with the Miami Heat, but I think Miami, especially with how they performed against Chicago, with how they dominated Chicago from start to finish, with how Tyler Hero performed, I think with how Bam Adebayo performed, I think Bam Adebayo is the X factor in this game, and I think that's how they get past Atlanta, with Bam Adebayo dominating on both sides. You're right that they, outside of Bam and Tyler, most of the starting lineup is rookies. 100%, I completely understand what you mean. I completely know what you mean, but we're comparing apples to apples here. That's why I'm saying I don't think they'll get past Cleveland, or they won't make. I think Cleveland dominates them in the opening round of the playoffs, but I think they're good enough. They're a good enough team to get past Atlanta, I think. So, but yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. But moving on from the Miami Heat and Cleveland Cavaliers series in the first round, we're going to go to Boston and Orlando. As a Celtics fan, this is a little bit of an intriguing matchup. Not in terms of Boston. This is intriguing because of Orlando. With how they performed against Atlanta, with the only way I can really describe it is a defensive straitjacket that they put on Atlanta in that fourth quarter. A 2-point game going into the fourth quarter, being bloomed all the way into a 25-point finish. Final score 120-95, and a game that was really close beforehand. I just don't know how they can come back from this. I think Orlando, what am I saying? I think Orlando is one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I think they're incredibly underrated, and they deserve a lot of credit for their performance down the stretch. I apologize for that noise. A car decides to blare their music out their window. But I think the Orlando Magic is one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I think they'll give the Boston Celtics a little bit of a run for their money. They'll probably send this game. I think they'll send the series to at least 5, if not 6 games. But I'm still picking Boston to win this with their depth, with their star power, with their defense in general. I think Orlando can give them problems to start and can shock them a little bit at the start of the series. I think they can maybe win game 2, and they'll probably split in Boston, split in Orlando, and then Boston will probably take game 5 and game 6, I'd say. I just think the maturity and playoff experience that this Boston Celtics team has right now, it's on another level than what Orlando has, and I think that'll be the X factor in this one. This is what I'm going on, Anthony, with another chat comment in this one. This is what I'm going off of. Our lottery pick protection relies that we don't make the playoffs, and if we make it, we lose our pick to Oklahoma City. I have seen that, but I going back to what I said, I just think Eric Spoelstra under the Pat Riley era, I think Eric Spoelstra will have his team ready to go. And that'll be that. I just don't think. Yeah, that's just that. I think Eric Spoelstra has too much pride with Pat Riley to intentionally lose not only games but especially a playoff game. I don't see it personally. If they weren't in the playoffs, I could understand what you mean. If they were straggling on the outside, maybe similar to what the Phoenix Suns were at, a few games behind the 10 seed. I could completely see what you mean, especially if they squeaked by the Chicago Bulls. I completely see what you mean. But I think they kind of shocked people with their win against Chicago. So I think I just don't think they're going to intentionally lose the game. So we'll see what happens. Also, see for me, I have Orlando upsetting Boston. I keep seeing that. I personally don't understand the noise about Orlando upsetting Boston. I think Orlando's a very young team that's growing in front of our very eyes. But I don't think they're on that level yet you can say definitively that they're going to knock off Boston in the first round. I don't think they're on that level. They're good. They're great. They're incredibly young with a bright future ahead of them. But upsetting Boston is another side of the coin that I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're going to upset Boston. I think the play of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown is just going to be too much for Paulo and Franz Wagner, especially with Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White. I think their starting five is just too much for most teams in the NBA to handle. That's just my take on it. And especially for a young Orlando team, I just don't see them upsetting Boston in the first round. But from there, I mentioned 1-8, 2-7, the Knicks and the Pistons 3-6. The final matchup that I also teased earlier in the show, the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks at 4-5. Two teams that met each other last season in the playoffs. Indiana winning that series. Milwaukee not having Giannis in that series. I think this series is going to be one of the best in the entire Eastern Conference playoffs. Outside of the Eastern Conference Finals, if we see Boston versus Cleveland in that Eastern Conference Final, I think this is going to be one of the best series in the East in general. I think this series comes down to depth with Indiana, with how deep they are with their top seven in general. I think they're going to be able to they're going to be able to compete and knock off Damian Lillard and Giannis. Dame and Giannis will do their thing. Do not get me wrong. They'll probably both average 25 points this series, going back and forth. Each one of them scoring 35 in a game, the other scoring 25. But from there, outside of Dame and Giannis, this team is just it's just not a deep team. It's very top heavy, and from there, what do you have? You have Pat Connaughton, Brook Lopez, Kevin Porter Jr., Bobby Portis. Don't get me wrong, these guys are good role players, but I think compared to the role players that Indiana has with Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, I think these guys are just they're better in all-around players. You have a mix of defensive guys, a mix of offensive guys, of shooters, of interior big men. You have a great mix on this Indiana Pacers team, and it makes them very unique because you don't really see teams they're a very well-balanced team in general, and it's tough you kind of have to beat them at their own game, I've realized. To beat the Indiana Pacers, you have to beat them at their own game, which is they prefer to make games a shootout. If you can beat them at their own game, they can be had. And I just don't think Milwaukee can do that. Milwaukee can exploit them and focus on the interior game with Giannis, but I just think Indiana is going to be too much for them to handle. And I think this series goes 7 games, and I have Indiana winning this series in 7 games. I apologize, I ran a little bit too long. I couldn't preview the Western Conference playoffs. I probably should have done that in the last segment. I just thought I could mix in both the East and the West, but it's okay. I'll talk about it in the next one on Monday. I'll either talk about it on Monday, or if you guys stay tuned to the GSMC Sports Network, we do shorts on this page, YouTube shorts. I'll do my YouTube shorts on the Western Conference playoffs, what I expect from all 4 matchups. That'll be uploaded there shortly after this. But thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, please remember to leave a positive review. It really does make more of a difference than you think. Any review, whether positive or negative, it helps us build our shows. Your feedback helps us know what you guys want to hear. Build our shows around that, and you guys are a big part in what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network. Also, we invite you to please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. It was another phenomenal show, another phenomenal week of basketball in general, of covering basketball on this show. We got a very packed weekend of NBA playoff games, a very packed weekend of holidays. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy Patriots Day to everybody. I hope you guys enjoy the long weekend, a good long break from everything going on. But yeah, enjoy the NBA playoffs. It's been a pleasure to be here with you guys again. This is Mehrob Fatemi, the host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, signing off. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekends, and happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to